Okay, so here we are. We are live, and welcome to this episode of the BariAftercare podcast. I have Dr. Joan Brugman on with me again today because we have an exciting topic, and she described it as we nerding out on the neuroscience behind behavior. And I think this is a really, really important topic for every human on the planet. But when you've had weight loss surgery and things change and people are encouraging you to change a lot of things about your life in addition to how you eat and exercise, but how you think and how you interact with people and how you set boundaries. And the change process can be very, very difficult. And Dr. Brugman, just exudes enthusiasm about this topic. And so do I. And I would like to learn more about this neuroscience piece that she's interested in to see if I know anything about it and kind of chime in with my own 2 cents about, there are a lot of philosophies about behavior change. And when you go to school to become a psychologist, they present you with many theories. And you kind of have to say, well, I buy into this theory because I believe change is brought about this way and problems occur because of this. So we'll see what the research is saying and talk about specific issues related to the bariatric process. And I have one that I would really like to discuss as we go through this today. So welcome back, Dr. Brugman.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad to be back.
So you love this topic. Where's this love of this neuroscience of behavior come from?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I figured you probably would ask me that. So, when I'm not going to do a deep dive into the history, so this is be superficial. But when I was in high school, I did some competitive high school theater, and
Oh, how fun.
it was pretty interesting. It's a whole world unto itself. I most of the friends I have are high school theater teachers, as a matter of fact. So it's definitely alive and well. But as I got into it, I had one of my early directors or instructors say, develop your character and know what you're bringing onto the stage. And it made me start thinking, why do people behave the way they behave? And since when I told my parents, especially my dad, that I was being encouraged by these faculty members, really ought to think about having a career in acting. And both of them were
I
really old
love
school,
that.
not supporters of the arts, and they said, what, what are you talking about? Are you going to go to New York and stand in some cattle call? You still wait for your big break, or so you starve to death? Don't be stupid. You can't do that. So, and they
Oh my
didn't like the
God.
idea of you becoming an artist either. They thought that was equally stupid to do. Didn't matter what the faculty was saying. I probably could have done. Didn't matter. So I said, okay, well, I'm just gonna just do a theater just for fun. But I still really, really want to know, why do people behave this way? So fine. So then I started studying psychology and sociology and then AP Psych. And that's why I decided to be a psych major when I went off to college. So I go to college, and my very favorite classes were chemistry, of all things, and biological psychology. And so my mother said, so you're going to go to medical school then? And, I said, I'm going to be a psychologist. She said, you mean a psychiatrist? I said, no, you'd have to go to medical school for that. I'm not going to medical school. She said, what? Don't be ridiculous. You'll waste your whole life if you don't go to medical school. I said, no, too much math. I can't. No, I want to study the material. I don't want to get caught up in all this irrelevant math stuff that I would have to do that's not my favorite thing. And I make that point for a reason, because my experience with math up until that point, as a lot of people and actually a lot of females have that same experience where they feel like they don't enjoy math. It doesn't come easily to them. So their brain learns this. When you study this kind of material, you don't feel successful. You don't feel, enthusiastic. There's a very low probability that you're going to feel reward. So you should just take that off the list. And you, not only do you become demotivated, but you become motivated to avoid that thing. And that is a chemical reaction. It is not
That is
because
an
you're just not
interesting thing.
trying hard enough. It's
Mhm.
not that. It's you don't try
Yeah.
hard. because your brain tells you that'd be a real waste of effort. It's not going to work out well. You're not going to enjoy this. Don't waste your energy there. So then, so away I went. So you went to graduate school, and you just made the point that, when you learn this field, you get these different opinions. So the program I went to had two distinct sets of faculty members. One set was very psychoanalytical, and some of them were avant-garde, and they'd say, well, psychodynamic, it's psychoanalytical, the kind of old school, talking about Sigmund Freud and some of those guys. And psychodynamic is a is a newer, more, maybe more flexible version of that. So there was that group of faculty, and then there were the other side that was very, very behavioristic. Like Nathan Asrin was one of my professors. So um, I was always the person sitting in class with the psychodynamic faculty, the psychoanalytical faculty, with my arms folded and this look on my face like, you've got to be kidding me. Um, and just had a lot of conversations. One of the woman who was teaching personality theory. Sorry if you can hear the fire trucks in the background. She was talking about the perspective that what counts as masturbatory behavior and how it's related to your early psychosexual conflicts and things. And again, I'm giving her the look, and she said, "Do you have a problem?"
That's so funny.
I said, well, I don't know. I mean, what is the evidence for this? And she said, yeah, I got a question for you. Why are you in this program if you don't believe in psychology? I said, I believe in psychology. I believe psychology is a science. And I'm just simply asking you for the evidence. What is the evidence for this? And that it was just like that on an ongoing basis.
A lot of
Because
theory. It was a lot of theory.
yeah, that's fine. The theory's pretty interesting, but what you got? So, you know, um, I that's not the topic for today, but there were some of those things that I've learned to maybe rework in a different way, see it in a different way, and some of the foundational ideas about what impacts the development of a person's personality, or the way they see other people, the way they interact with people, and the impact of early childhood experiences, early trauma, etc. The relationship with the mother. Okay, those things probably do have a bearing, but I think that there is a scientific explanation for that, and for me, that makes it more, I can use it more, I can have more confidence in it, because I mean, anybody can come up with a wild idea, but what evidence do we have? And just because everybody believes the same thing doesn't make it true. We can all drink the Kool-Aid,
Okay.
but we're still all wrong. So that's just,
So
where that started from. And then when I had my bariatric surgery about 20 years ago, then it really made me want to understand what is going on here. Why am I the way I am? And then it just triggered this, kind of flurry of interest, reignited that flurry of interest in me to really learn and study more and start actually using that when I work with patients.
So, for purposes of this podcast in the bariatric community and neuroscience and behavior, what would you like to start with in terms of educating people in this business of neuroscience and understanding behavior?
So when I was thinking, you know, probably the most frequent issues that I work with people, where I can really see the impact of what's going on with them from a neuroscientific standpoint, that they're and that really is impacting their behavior and their perspective of their own behavior, is with regard to emotional eating, and also a related aspect of difficulty with maybe portion regulation, either portions that are too big, having your eyes bigger than your stomach, or sometimes a really, really unhealthy uh, portion dysregulation in the other direction. So sometimes it's too much food, sometimes it's not nearly enough food. And a lot of time what is underpinning that process is about anxiety, which again, there's a really good neuroscientific explanation for that I have found to be really helpful with people. So, but I thought maybe it made sense to start with the emotional eating part because I think that's something a lot of
Absolutely.
people can really identify with. Um,
Okay.
so, when I was thinking about what's the best way to describe this, why do I do this? I can't stop myself. I People say I'm an emotional eater, and a lot of times if I ask them to tell me more about that, they'll just it's sort of the deer in the headlights. I don't know why I do it. I feel something, and the next thing I know, I've got my head in the quart of ice cream box, and I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And so then if it's during their pre-surgical psych eval that we're having that conversation, I say, okay, we really have to get a handle on that before you go forward, because what's past is prologue. The kind of patterns of behavior that people have done in the past are going to resurface, and the surgery is not going to stop that from happening. So you really need to get a handle on it so that when it flares again, you will have better tools in place to handle that. Because if you go back to emotional eating or portion dysregulation, either after you've had bariatric surgery, you are setting yourself up for some serious medical problems and psychological problems. And obviously, we don't want to see that happen. So,
Correct.
what would be helpful in terms of describing this? Do you want me to just roll, or do you have some targeted questions?
You roll, girl. You roll.
Okay. So, let me give a couple of the references that I have discovered that I have found really useful for folks because they're written. They're a couple books, and they're written for the general public. They're not textbooks in neuroscience. The first one that I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of is a book called Dopamine Nation. And it's written by a great psychiatrist out of Stanford named Anna Lemke. Um,
Amazing book.
yeah, she's
Amazing book.
really, really good. And I love her metaphor that I am kind of I refer to myself as sort of a metaphor maniac. And it can get a little too much for some people sometimes. That's how my brain works. So I like the metaphor she uses of like a seesaw. And
Mhm.
she's talking about the pleasure pain balance. And when we encounter things in our lives where the pain side of the seesaw goes up, the pleasure side goes down. Well, or the other way around. If the pleasure side goes up and the pain side goes down, the brain doesn't like that. Even if it's high pleasure, the brain says, no, this is not going to be good. We need to stay in balance. Too much of anything good, or too much of anything, period, but even something good is going to end up not being good. There's such a thing as too much water. You have to have water to live, but you can cause yourself
Correct.
big problems by having too much water. So the brain doesn't like this. And so it is wired to correct that imbalance. And it will, without your consent, without asking your opinion, without giving you any options, it just takes over and says, "No, no, we're not okay. We're gonna rebalance this." Um, so it causes us to do things to either raise the pleasure if we're having too much distress. That's not good. So it makes us want to do things that are pleasurable to bring the brain back in balance. And the opposite is true. If we're having too much pleasure, it says not okay. So it motivates us, interestingly, to do things or to maybe allow things or to shift our perspective so that the sense of quote unquote pain goes up, because that brings the other side of the seesaw back in line. The goal is not to harm us. The goal is actually to give us better well-being by bringing about this homeostasis, the balance of the seesaw. But as I say to
So you
people very often, ain't nothing for free. And the price of that is you have to have a little discomfort to bring that back in line. You can
okay,
ask.
so when it comes to emotional eating,
Mhm.
this discomfort you're talking about, is, I'm assuming, staying away from that so that you can balance.
Right.
Or
Well,
am I reading that wrong?
it can go, sometimes it can go in either direction. So the most common scenario is that the person has had something happen to them, and they've had a bad day, or somebody hurt them, or they're feeling some kind of distress. And it might be that something on the outside happened to them. It might be something internal. It doesn't really matter where the source is. The brain says something stressful is happening, and that triggers this cascade of chemical reactions that alters behavior. Hang on one second. I'm just looking at a note that I wrote to myself here about this. So, um, we're obviously we have to eat, right? I don't want to give the idea that when people eat, they're doing something wrong. We have to eat, but the idea is that that's for survival. Now, and again, I'm not saying that you should only ever eat, you know, boring food. I love to cook.
Right.
If I
Food is
there's a lot of times I
pleasurable.
think if I could just not do any of this stuff anymore, I just go be a personal chef someplace. I love that. I would love that. So I don't want to discourage people from enjoying their food at all.
For
But
sure.
the idea of it is that it was fuel for us to be able to create energy so that we could survive, so that we could create more humans and keep the species alive. That's the idea. The food is supposed to be fuel to maintain the species, not really for entertainment. Um, and it takes, if you go back in evolution, the food was, there were no refrigerators, there were no bags of chips at our hands. There was no DoorDash was going
Right.
to bring it to you. You had to go hunt for it, or at
Right.
least go forage for it. And that took a lot of energy. The place was dangerous. There were like other predators that wanted to eat us as part of their food chain. There were, other, you know, new humans that were also competing for the same food. Takes a lot of energy. So the
Right.
smart thing to do would be to figure out how to get food that would make it worth the effort. So if you could find food that had a high probability of giving you a lot of energy without you having to put a lot of energy into it, that's definitely going to be
Mhm.
the better choice. Not going to help you if you find something that will give you 1,000 calories, but it costs you 2,000 calories in energy to go find it. That's not going to help you. Now you're in a
Right.
deficit. And in
Right.
the meantime, you might have gotten eaten by somebody else, or fell down and hurt yourself, or whatever. And there's no
Right.
band-aids or urgent care at the time. So we're really
Right.
motivated to seek out food that's going to give us a lot of those resources that our body can easily convert with ATP, and create it into energy. And also be really handy if we could store some of that for the long term, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe there's something that's going to cut off the food supply, or whatever, the
Mhm.
herd has migrated away and we haven't figured out where they went yet, and so we better be able to store some of this stuff. So that means that we're biologically wired to prefer food that is going to be high fat and high carbohydrate food,
Mhm.
especially for the convenience factor, highly processed and refined carbohydrates. And I say convenience, not that it's at your fingertips, but that it's very convenient for your body to easily
Mhm.
convert it into energy that you can use, because there's a good chance you're going to need to run away from some saber-toothed tiger or something, you know? So, and obviously this is really old programming. That's not the case anymore, but
Right.
it, we can't just go to the app store and get an upgrade for our brains. That's not a thing, at least not yet anyway. Gosh, who knows what it'll be in the future. Um, so it's not, because people say this all the time. I am just a bad person because I really want to eat, and they name whatever unhealthy food. So again, high fat or highly processed carbohydrate food. and they feel bad about it because they know, I'm a bariatric patient too, so I know what this feels like. You've been told 1,000 times, but all of the diet programs that you've ever been on, dietitians, your physicians told you 1,000,000 times, you need to eat healthy food. You shouldn't be eating, all this stuff. And by the way, all the stuff that is in the American food supply that we did not design. And even the
Correct.
stuff that we buy that we think, oh, that's healthy. If you understood how it was produced, and it's, some stuff has a label, you could read what's on the label, you'd be very, very surprised at what those chemical things are that are written in the, like, 15 letter words, what those
Yeah.
actually mean. There's so many additives to our food supply that, just exactly like big tobacco, they put stuff in food to make us want
Right.
to eat more of it. Well,
Right.
yeah, that's why you shouldn't
Right.
eat any of that stuff. You should only eat, vegetables. Okay, well, okay, there's a big role for vegetables, and then it's not in a package. It's natural, maybe and maybe not, because they still treat agricultural crops with certain things to make them um, be able to be harvested a lot faster, and for the produce to ripen faster, for it to grow bigger, because Americans like things bigger, better, faster, more. If it looks bigger, that's the one we want.
Right.
If it looks
Right.
more colorful, that's the one we want. It There's a lot of reasons for that, and the food industry knows that, and
Right.
they're
They
doing
engineer
what
it
they do.
to the bliss
It's
point. Yep.
engineered. Yes, that's right, for the
Mhm.
bliss point, right. So, we're
Which is
designed to
mentioned in
want
the
that food
dopamine
anyway,
too.
especially if our brain says, "You feel bad, I really need to make you feel better," because we're animals, so when animals don't feel good, they might be injured or sick, and then they might not survive very well, so the brain really wants to make that discomfort go away so that you can survive. And then the problem with that is that, okay, but it overshoots and we don't know where to stop. So again,
Mhm.
I don't want people to think that I'm saying you should never eat, tasty,
Right.
yummy food.
Right.
Not saying that. I'm certainly not saying that you should never eat carbohydrates. You have to have carbohydrates to survive.
Right.
And I will say, I am not a registered dietitian either. So, people listening to this, get the specifics on that from your own dietitian. But in general, there are no forbidden foods. We don't want there to be forbidden foods, because if we wag our fingers at people and say, no, you cannot have that, whatever, whole wheat bread, or Little Debbie, or ice cream, or whatever, Cheetos, whatever. That's bad, and you're bad if you eat it, and so you have to restrict yourself and never have that again. Then the pain side of the seesaw goes up, and people feel bad because they feel like they're being deprived. Everybody else
Mhm.
gets to have this, but not me, and that's not fair. And it feels bad. I don't mean to make that sound in any way sarcastic. Um,
No, it
it
does.
raises that side of the seesaw. And then the
Sure.
brain says, not okay. We need to rebalance that. So it's this constant effort at trying to regain the balance. And
Mhm.
I know it's a lot of times people go, oh, this is just there's too much. This is too much work. That's why I wanted to have surgery, because I didn't want to
Mhm.
have to always have to stay on top of this. I wanted to just be able
Right.
to eat what I want to eat, and my body won't store everything as fat anymore. And they believe that that's what the surgery will do for them, and that is not the case. As I say, ain't nothing for free. And part of the price of having a successful bariatric lifestyle that you talk so much about is having to put some effort into keeping yourself balanced. Because if you want to go on
Mhm.
autopilot, I can tell you right now, it's going to
Right.
go in a bad direction, because our brain,
Right.
and I'm going to get into this a little bit more, um, it is programmed to go in that direction, and it's not good at knowing when enough is enough. And even once it reaches the bliss point, it sometimes will still overshoot, and it just keeps going in this perpetual, maybe there's a
Mhm,
higher bliss point.
mhm,
Maybe I can get that to just stay all the time and I never have to go back down.
mhm.
Yeah, that's you can do that if you want to.
So if a patient's listening and they're going, "Here's my fear," they're going, "Well, it's a brain thing. I can't do anything about it. It's just how my brain wired. So I guess I'm stuck being an emotional eater." So then what do you
Right,
say?
right. Yeah, sometimes people will say, "Gosh, if you have to do all this work, why would you even bother, you know, having surgery or even trying to gain weight or any of it?" So this is an automatic response. It is part of the autonomic nervous system. And when I was teaching, I'd say to the students, think about that as autonomic. So it sounds like the word automatic. It
Automatic.
it it turns itself on automatically, but you have manual override. It will keep
Okay, here
tipping,
and
the
here's
balance will,
where we go. Yep.
yeah, it's about learning that manual override. And I do a little
Okay.
talking about why does this happen, just so that people can put down the burden of self-blame and, put your cat o' nine tails down that you've been beating yourself up with. That's unnecessary, irrelevant, doesn't help. It does not only does it not help, but if you beat yourself up over it, the pain thing is going to go up even higher, and you're just setting yourself up for more emotional eating. So you really have to work to letting go of that self criticism. And I don't mean entirely. You've talked about this before. You are still responsible for what you do with this very natural human situation. It is designed to help you stay alive. It's not a bad thing. But because it can go too far too fast, unless you want it to take over your life, if you don't want it to, then you've got to take the steering wheel back from it. But you absolutely can
Okay.
do that. And I didn't say it was easy to do, but it
Good.
is absolutely
Good.
possible. And the more people practice it, the easier it gets. They'll still have to do it,
All
but
right.
it won't always be so hard. So
All right. Let me jump in
that
here just to kind of
yeah, please.
clarify where we're at right now, because then I want to go into, well, how do I do that? Because people are going to be like, how do I
Mhm,
do that? So we have these biological responses that are automatic, that autonomic brain system. It just is going to happen. I like this. It makes me feel good. I want more of it. If I'm sad or angry or upset about something that happened in the day, it's natural and normal that I'm going to seek something that I find pleasure from. And for this person, it's food. So I'm an emotional eater. And so much of this is hardwired. The thought might be, well, it's hopeless. But then comes the piece that you just said is you can override the system and teach yourself how to engage in something that will bring you to a more neutral place on that teeter totter. So, how does that work? How do you change that automatic thinking like, I'm feeling bad, I want the this?
mhm. So one of the things is you have to really, you have to understand what's going on. It's if you don't really pay attention to this, it is unlikely that you're going to get reliable change. Maybe once in a while you could do it, but then as often as not, you're going to fall back. And then when people fall back, they don't just slide back;
Give it up.
they completely throw the whole thing away. Sorry.
So, in other words,
Um,
you have to become aware that you are, oh, I'm turning to food. Oh, there's an emotion attached to this. So, an
that's right.
awareness of what I am doing is
Right.
you got to become
Right.
aware of that.
Yeah. So look at the pattern. So, and again, what I'm talking about now, again, want to give credit where it is due. This is springboarding from a book that has been written by um, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist that has written several books. He's really, really good. This particular book is called The Hunger Habit: Why We Eat When We're Not Hungry and How to Stop. And the author's name is Dr. Judson Brewer. He's written several other books, The Craving Mind and Unwinding Anxiety. He's got in fact, he's got an app out in the world that helps people to get their disordered eating under control. So that's
Wow.
really good. So I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just using his framework because he
Right,
describes
right, right.
it so well. It's such a user friendly way. So the first thing is to really know what you're doing and to look at your patterns. So don't immediately, the mistake that people make a lot of time is to try to use willpower. Okay, I've got to stop this emotional eating. It doesn't matter if I'm upset. I can't eat anything. I can't use food as my pacifier. I'm just not going to do it, because that doesn't work. If willpower was strong enough, none of us would have needed bariatric surgery if we could just tough it out.
Right,
And
right.
the harder and longer a person tries to rely on that, and they're fighting against their own neurochemistry, that teeter totter, the seesaw thing, that pain side is going to go up, and the brain automatically triggers this response where it says, I need you to go find the fastest, easiest, yummiest, tastiest, most satisfying food there is. And
Mhm.
in 40 years of working with patients, I don't think I've ever had a person say, I was so upset. I needed to find some romaine lettuce really fast and I just way overdid it. No,
Golly, I
no,
haven't heard that either.
no, I don't know. I've met people that grazed on carrots a lot, but out of boredom maybe, but um, not in the
Mhm.
frantic, I feel so distressed. I can't stand it. I've got to soothe myself
Right.
right now. No, that's not going to do it. Even though it's a carbohydrate, it doesn't have the mouth feel. It doesn't have all the other things. So your body says, yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
carbohydrates are good, but
Right.
it's boring. So, but if you can add something that increases your motivation, like that creamy mouth feel, or brightly colored things. I used to talk about, you know, look at your food patterns and things, and don't be eating things like Fruity Pebbles, haha, because obviously what adults don't eat Fruity Pebbles, right? Turns out a lot of people do. It's the only,
Mhm.
why would you do that? Well, they're there because my kids have them. They like them. And so then I
Mhm.
just eat them too. Well, okay, well, you could go get yourself some
Mhm.
other healthier version. Yeah, I have that too, but I still go to the Fruity Pebbles. But why? It's it's not really because they taste that good, is it? Surely not. I don't know. So, but we're really, really drawn to colorful foods. The more colorful they are, the more
Mhm.
phytonutrients they have, the more antioxidants they have, the more readily available that is for your body to uptake, the more brightly colored they are. So
Mhm.
the food industry says people like colorful food. Let's just inject this stuff with fluorescent orange. Like think
With
about
red
Cheetos.
dye.
Yeah, anything
Mhm.
colorful, please. It doesn't matter that, raspberry flavored stuff. Raspberries are not neon blue. I don't know. Where did they come up with that idea? Doesn't matter. People are drawn to that
I
color
don't know.
and they'll choose it
Mhm.
over other colors. So, okay, we'll just color it
Sure.
blue. So we're drawn to that. So then the first thing is say, all right, so I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to criticize. I got to get some data. I need to get a baseline, which is a big reason why I have people keep a food journal when they're coming to me for their bariatric evaluation. Even if we're looking at it and go, this is not a good pattern of eating. That's okay. That's just going to be the baseline. So then,
Mhm.
okay, take some time to look at that and then just write it down. And then the next step is to say, okay, now what is going on with you? So take a little time to think about how are you feeling. Put the food stuff aside and don't even try to change that. Just pay attention. How was your body feeling? Did
Mhm.
you feel you had a headache? Your stomach was hurting you, your hips, your knees, your back, there was a lot of pain. A lot of our patients have a lot of orthopedic issues. So again, just track it. Or if you have whatever, it might be physical pain, it might be emotional pain. I've got a lot of stressful things going on. I've a bunch of irons in the fire this day in my real life. And I could just almost feel myself going, what? What's happening?
Mhm.
Almost sort of dizzy, or gosh,
Right.
I just need to, I wish I had something to eat. I should have brought some lunch with me. That's what I want to do. I want to soothe myself. Where's that damn pacifier? And it's okay, not a
Yeah,
criticism. It's just I got
exactly.
to see the pattern. So then, all right. So now the person
Right.
spends some time doing that, and then that's fine. I know that, but how does that change my eating behavior? So one of the things that the brain does is, which we did not realize it was doing, was gathering data all throughout our lives. And it has learned that certain kinds of food leads to this, emotional regulation because it makes us feel better. And it says, okay, so
Mhm.
I don't want you wasting any time trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to embed that knowledge. Feel bad leads directly to seek out some Cheetos or ice cream or chips or cookies or whatever it is. So it's just an automatic thing because the brain has learned that those things taste good. It thing and again, the opposite is true. So if I know you've got kids, and you've got grandchildren. So when any of us have had kids and you say, here's your dinner, and the kid looks at it, they've never had it before, and they say, I don't like that. You don't even know if you like it. I
Yeah.
do know I don't like it. You've never tried it. Just try it. No, no. And the more you encourage them to just try it, just take a bite, the more they dig their heels in, and the lip goes up, and the eyebrows go down. Here comes the
Oh,
tears,
true.
because their brain is telling them there's a connection. That thing that they're trying to force you to eat, that's like this other thing you've had before that really didn't give you any reward. And this is just going to be the same thing. You don't need to know why. It's just take my word for it. This is not going to go well. Don't eat that broccoli stuff they're telling you. Don't even try it. It's a waste of your energy. Um, and then express a display of behavior that will get that person to quit bothering you. It'll be so distressing to them that they'll go away and leave you alone. So then it reinforces that kind of behavior too. So then you look at that and you say, all right, so what's fueling this craving stuff? And sometimes it's a craving like, when I feel upset, all I want to eat are Twinkies or whatever. I'm from the Northeast, so I say Twinkies to people down here in North Carolina, and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" So I have to learn to say Little
We
Debbie.
had them in the Midwest.
Yeah, Twinkies are still a thing. They're probably the ones that they
Mhm.
made when you and I were little kids, because I don't think they ever go
Exactly.
bad. So, all right, so what is that? So I just know that this is what's happened. Somehow my brain has learned to just automatically assume that there's going to be a really high reward, and then it pumps out. So I get a lot of serotonin from that, which is one of those neurotransmitter things. It makes us feel really good. And when the brain says, "See, I told you this is going to work. Just you need to go for the Twinkies or Little Debbie's," then it produces a big dopamine burst that says, "Do that again, and do it right now, and do it fast, and don't stop. Maybe don't ever stop, but for right now, just keep on going." And it's like,
Mhm.
do it, do it, do it, because it assumes that this is going to feel good to you. And in the moment, it might feel really good. Like, yes, I'm having a Cheeto gasm. I knew this was going to work. But at the end, you're going to feel really bad about that Cheeto gasm because, you know, but I know better. I shouldn't have done that. And now I feel bad because I should have stopped myself. But again, this is all an automatic thing. So the trick here is to spend some time. Your brain says, go have the Cheetos. That's fine. Go have the Cheetos. Have the Cheetos. But really get some data. You got to make it be a scientific experiment. Is your brain actually right? Does it really give you what you thought you were going to get out of it? And sometimes people will say, yeah, it does. I work with people on
Mhm.
mindful eating a lot. And so
Mhm.
mindful eating is
Mhm.
not just make good choices, it is also that, but drive all of your sensory systems to every single bite that you take. So
Right.
that if you say, all right, why do I want those Cheetos? I know they're not good for me. All right, so looking for nutrition is not one of my motivators. I just like them because I like that crunchy thing. I like the weird springy feeling of them in my mouth. I've had people say, "I know it's terrible, but I really like that chemical fake cheese thing. I just do." That's absolutely fine. It's okay. So look at the things. So you're going to use all five of your senses. Every single bite,
Mm-hmm.
really look at it. So a way people have done this before is the D- Dr. Brewer calls it the secret raisin society. But so if you took a raisin and you really
Mm-hmm.
study that raisin, it's different than it's a grape, right? It's a dehydrated grape, but it looks very different from a grape. It's not smooth, it's not plump, it's shriveled up, and you can see all the different colors in the nooks and crannies and all that. So whatever it is, it's a raisin, it's a grape, it's a Cheeto, doesn't matter. Really study it, even though you've had it a trillion times in your life and you could describe it to me right now. We're trying to get you to be in the
Right.
moment. What does it look like? And then I have people go to their nose next. So put the thing right up underneath your nose and take a big whiff of it. And sometimes you have a good outcome from that, sometimes not so much. I had a lady who really, really loved pirate's booty, which I didn't even know what that stuff was. And she said when she got a whiff of it, she said, I had never smelled this stuff before. And it smelled like a combination. This is a quote. I'm not making this up. She said, smelled like a combination of dirty gym socks and sweaty jock straps.
Oh,
And
I'd
I
really love to eat
really,
that. Yeah.
she said, I did not want to put that in my mouth because
And they're
that was
giving
the
it all
image
the
I
little
got
kid
in
birthday
my
parties.
head.
All the little kid birthday parties. Pirate booty.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had never heard of the
Gross.
stuff before. And she was eating a whole bag of it
Mm-hmm.
every day, even though she
Yeah.
knew this is really unhealthy. I shouldn't be doing this. But she never stopped to pay attention to what it was. She just assumed, I love that. So in it goes,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even realize what's happening. And then feel it on your mouth and let your tongue have a chance to actually taste this stuff. And don't even start chewing it yet. Just let your taste buds have a chance to get in on
Mm-hmm.
it. And then when you start chewing it, what does it feel like in your mouth? And can you hear it? So
Mm-hmm.
if it was something crunchy, you chose it because it was crunchy. Can you actually hear
Right.
the crunch? Or does it make a sound that you never noticed before? And actually, it's sort of an off-putting, weird kind of sound. Um, I knew a person who really, really loved yellow squash casserole, like summer squash casserole. Like they
Mm-hmm.
put an enormous amount of cheese and fat and stuff like that. And she said when she started paying attention to it, it made not only was it like the squash itself was
Mm-hmm.
kind of squeaky, and that was very weird to her. And then it was like a like a squelching sound. She said, "Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never
Oh,
paid
that's
attention
good.
to it."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in the whole idea of this is, if this is again, this goes very much onto what Dr. Brewer's um, um, program is all about, is getting your brain to recognize the thing that it has been gaslighting you on for all these years, telling you was going to be really yummy and delicious and it's going to be worth it. If you might feel bad about it later, but the pleasure you're going to have in the moment, the reward is going to be worth it. If you really drive your attention to it, you start to realize actually not so much. It might be that there's something about it. It's actually unpleasant that I never noticed before, or
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. So I'll give you an example.
Right.
This happened to me, I don't know, a few weeks ago. My husband was doing something really late. I had a whole dinner thing planned. He wasn't going to make it home for dinner, whatever. So now it's late. It's like 9:30. I need to eat something. I was waiting for him. Oh gosh,
Mm-hmm.
I know, I've heard some chefs say when they need a meal, a quick meal at home after they're done working, they make like spaghetti and put olive oil and some salt on it. And I go, well, that pasta is not the greatest thing. I've got some higher protein pasta, so I'm going to have that. That's the chefs say that's a good thing. I believe in them. It'll be good. But then I got it in my head, like all I was going to have to do was boil the pasta. Take 10 minutes. I'll have some food. But then I thought, though, I remember I saw a recipe for garlic mushroom creamy pasta, like garlic mushroom pasta and a creamy sauce. And I thought, ooh, I love mushrooms. Mushrooms are good for you. And I love garlic. That's good for your heart. And I love creamy stuff. So, and I can still have that. And so now I'm off the 10-minute, just boil some water and you can have dinner. Now I'm doing this. So I'm cutting up all the mushrooms and I've got to make a bechamel. But it's fine. It's fine. I love to cook. By the time I got this stuff done, and it was, my brain said, you're going to love this. You love all these components. But the effort that it took me, which I didn't sit down
Hmm.
feeling like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. No, I really wanted it and I ate it. But at the end, I thought, I'm not getting much pleasure from this. Well, this is such a downer. What a letdown, a disappointment, because I thought it was going to be.
For
Why wasn't it wonderful? I didn't screw it up. I did it right, but it just
right.
wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So your brain
Hmm.
makes this prediction error. If
Hmm.
it thinks that there's a high probability of reward, it fires that dopamine, and you are gone. But if
But you
you
were.
pay attention and you
Mhm.
don't get it because it looked yucky. It smelled terrible. It didn't taste as good as you thought. It sounded weird. It felt something, or it
Oh
was
God.
exhausting. Then your brain relearns. You can reteach your brain. So the next time I need a quick meal, I'm not going to creamy mushroom garlic pasta because the
Right.
effort I'm going to put into it is going to ruin it for me. And that's where a lot of the
Right.
folks that I see say, I don't cook because it's too much effort. I want convenience
Hmm.
food. So a big part of
Right.
this is don't give yourself the out of saying, yeah, well, okay, so I learned it from her. I'm not going to make it myself. I'll just get Olive Garden to make it. I can DoorDash it. And then I can have all the parts I like and I didn't have to put any effort into it. Be careful about
Yeah.
that. The whole idea here
That's
is to
right.
give your brain the actual experience of finding out that
Yeah.
it wasn't the reward. So if you go for convenience, then you're going to undermine this process and your brain is going to learn, see, I told you this would work. Next time, just DoorDash
Right.
yourself some pasta. It's easy. And then you'll be stuck in the trap. So if you're if your goal is to change your behavior, if you don't change anything, you're not going to change anything. So you got to remind yourself that that is my goal. And in fact, in Dr. Brewer's program, that's the first thing. Connie, I don't see your picture anymore, but I don't know if you can still hear me. So if your brain says this is going to be worth it, then you'll still do it. So you just have to show yourself it really isn't going to be worth it.
Okay, there we're back.
Okay.
I can
That was
edit all that. We're good. Okay,
okay.
so you were talking about the convenience thing
Yep.
and how that's
Yep.
not going to work because then you're going to get all the calories and the not prepared the healthy way and not knowing exactly what's going in there.
Your brain's going to learn that it can get the reward that it wants you to have. You can decrease your pain, increase your pleasure. It'll all be good. And you don't have to put much effort into it. So you got to really be aware of that and don't fall prey to the convenience factor. That's
Right.
part of the price of the bariatric lifestyle is
Hmm.
you pay some dollars and you're going to pay with some inconvenience as well. But
Right.
it's good for you. It's in your own best interest. So you don't have to go become a chef. You
Hmm.
just have to spend some time realizing that's not what I wanted. The outcome. So I might feel good in the moment. It was easy. It felt yummy. I felt better. I felt calmer. But okay, but then think forward. How are you going to feel
Yes.
later? So later on that night or maybe the next day, are you now thinking,
Think it through.
shoot, I shouldn't have done that. You got to make yourself recognize that. So don't be beating yourself up. Put it in that under the column of what was the consequence of the eating. Not
Right.
not for making yourself feel bad. You're
Right. But
just
what did
gathering
I
data.
learn?
What did I
Right.
learn? It
Data.
wasn't actually it was tasty, but the price I paid for it was feeling bad about it emotionally, and I know I damaged my health. And well, now that my smart prefrontal cortex is back online because the emotions got under control, now I can say, yeah, that wasn't actually that good. And you got to really let that register because that's part of you got to give your brain new information to develop a new formula to decide, is this really where I want to go with this? The reward I'm
Yeah.
going to get is going to be diminished by how bad I'm going to feel. And
Mhm.
also, I'm going to make my struggle to get my health under control that much longer a struggle. And that's not my goal. My goal is to improve my health and change my life. This is not going to take me in the direction of the life I want to have. And if you can
Exactly.
just put that pause in between the trigger and the response,
Right.
that there's in between the stimulus and the response, there is a pause. And in that
Right.
pause is your freedom.
Right.
The
The
freedom
purpose in the
from
pause, the
that's
purpose in
right.
the pause. There is
Yeah,
purpose in that pause. And
yeah.
it's to help you make that choice. Which way do I want to go with this? And it's interesting as I listen to you, and I just have a few more minutes before I have to run out of here, but
Mhm.
we definitely have to have another segment on this because this is a huge topic. And changing how you think and changing how, the rate at which you learn these things, this is not, and I do think that people get frustrated and fed up and are like, well, that didn't work for me. No, it's not going to work for you in 5 minutes. This is a process. And I love the fact that you work with people and you explain what's going on and that it's not a quick fix.
No, it's not. It's okay to give yourself time. That is an act of self compassion, and it's just reality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's part of one of the tools that makes the super powerful tool of having surgery
Mhm.
actually be able to be effective.
Yeah. And it's really important because when we just want life different, right? We don't
Right.
necessarily want the education about, oh, my brain does what? But it's important that you know this.
Mhm.
Without the understanding, you're going to be more likely just to beat up on yourself. Why can't I do this? I'm just a failure. That's not going to help you. But having it made clear that this is a process and that you involve all of your senses and that you gather data to see what's happening over time. And if this isn't working for you, where can we intervene in that pause? What can we do differently so that you do get some satisfaction and joy? We are built for pleasure, right? And
Yeah,
to minimize pain and still maintain our goal of following through with a healthy lifestyle plan in all areas of our life.
that's right. It's just learning when enough is enough so you can still have that. We want people to have that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any of that, then you're going to throw yourself out of balance again. But it's learning how to trust yourself to know that you can still have some things and have pleasure, but you're not going to lose control of yourself. And that is a wonderful, powerful feeling.
Oh, how empowering. Absolutely. And I would like to start with that topic next time. It's
Great.
like, this is what we're going for, right?
Mhm,
Because you feel so out of control, but you can make these decisions and have that feeling of, okay, this worked for me.
mhm.
What is this? What did I do cognitively and behaviorally to get to this place? So I just want to mention those books you said again, Dopamine Nation, which I
Mhm,
have read, and it is an extremely good book.
mhm,
The Hunger Habit
mhm.
and The Craving Mind.
Yep. Yep. And those are both by Judd Brewer. Yep.
So those would be some good books. I will put those in the podcast post notes because some people learn. This is a really good way for some people to learn through a more cognitive process. And I think you're a great addition because that's more your area of expertise and you do that well. Whereas I'm the psychodynamic chick, right?
There's a place for that.
There is. I like the brain stuff too, very, very much. And I'm very much into that as well. But one person may describe it to you this way, another person describes it to you through the brain chemistry way. There are many roads to Rome. We're trying to get you to the same place. So finding what works best for you, because we have different kinds of learning styles as well. So, there some people like, I'm going to understand this brain thing. And that just, ooh, I get that. That intrigues me, right? For other people, it's like, that's too,
Well, too complicated. Yeah.
yeah. So there are many, many roads to Rome, and I think we complement each other in that regard. So I love having you on the podcast. As I said last time, I want to have you on more because you give a different perspective to the same issue.
Yep,
So
that'd be great.
thank you for this. And do you want people to contact you? I put your email address in the show notes last time without asking you, which is not okay. Would you prefer I put them in or your email in or leave it out?
Um, Let me get back to you on that because I would probably have you give them the email that is from my employer. They might prefer that since that's where I encounter
Right, right,
people
right,
most
right.
often. But I have to get the green light from them if that is okay
Okay.
to give folks. But
For now, I'll just put your name in there.
yep.
All
And,
right.
they can contact the North Carolina Bariatric Institute if they want to, or they can also reach me through Fry Medical Weight Loss as well.
Okay. I'll put
Mhm.
that on there too. Okay. Because you give great information, and I know that that's going to reach some people really, really well. Um,
Great. I hope.
yeah. Okay. We will meet again on this topic again soon, okay? Because I think
Awesome.
it's really, really important. So let us know what you thought of this, how it helped you, what you would like to hear more about in terms of behavior and the brain, because it's a really important topic. And having a good understanding of how we are wired makes a lot of sense. And I love the whole gather data about yourself because then you're not going to argue with it. You're gathering the data, it's about you, right?
That's right.
Thanks for being with me again. I'll see you next time.
Great. I look forward to it. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.